Hi there once again, Talkin Fight fans. It's glad to have you aboard. Tonight we've got Champ Ola Ray in the house, and he's got the scoop. Who do you have lined up tonight, Champ?
Well, good to see you looking sharp again.
Thank you.
Trying to outshine me, but that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. Um, Today's episode, I'm going to talk about an incredibly well-rounded athlete or former athlete and a dear, close personal friend of mine. He had an amazing amateur career and finally stepped into the ring in the pro ranks, but not as an athlete, as an official. My name is Bola Raymond Olubuwale, and this is the scoop. Mark Simmons was born May of 1974 in Toronto, Ontario. Some 5 years later, his father took him to the Newsboys Boxing Club in the east end of Toronto for the very first time. Due to a colleague of his had his son training out of that gym. A year after that, Mark entered the squared circle as an athlete for the very first time. It wasn't to be his day because the fight got stopped in the third round because Mark's nose was bleeding all over the place. But with that being said, it didn't deter him at all. He loved the environment. He loved the camaraderie, the friendships. Being the little guy in the gym, he was seen as almost like a novelty, you know? I don't want to call him a mascot, but like, he was a little novelty act there. So a lot of the older guys were very encouraging as to him keeping up his quest for boxing excellence. 1993, Mark made his first national team, which was the B team. But when he got there, he realized that his dream was right on the corner, and he wanted to go to the Olympics. So he was itching to get to the 1996 Olympic Games. En route to the 1996 Olympic Games, he ran into a certain a Nigerian expat, new Canadian citizen in David Defiabon. David Defiabon immigrated to Canada some 2 years prior after the Commonwealth Games. And beat Mark in two really close fights leading up to the Olympic trials, and Defiabon went on. Now, this loss was serendipitous because at the end of the day, Mark recognized with David winning the silver medal at the 96 Olympic Games that he is capable of being on that world stage. And that he did. After those 96 games, Mark went undefeated on Canadian soil by any Canadian. He, contrary to some people, Mark actually went undefeated until for the next 4 years. He was a national champion, and boy, did he collect some hardware in his campaign on the national scene, or the international scene for that matter. He acquired the silver medal in the Francophone Games and the Pan American Games in 97 and 99, respectively. He acquired the gold medal in the Commonwealth Games in the Olympic qualifiers, international qualifiers, in 98 and 2000, respectively. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because Mark collected a host of other medals in a whole lot of different dual meets and international team tournaments that were just too long and too far and too vast for me to actually mention of right now. Upon qualifying for the Olympics, to say that the fire was beginning to fizzle out would be comparable to calling Don King's choice in haircuts as unfortunate. This would mark 20 years of Mark competing in boxing. And he pretty much had enough. But how do you tell everyone around you that's been your support staff, you know? People who are invested in your success, both physically in the way of trainers and coaches and whatnot, to emotionally invested in the way of friends, family, fans. After the Olympics took place, Mark took some much needed time off, but returned to the sport a few short months later to get back into the routine that he had known for the past 20 years, which was constantly training, boxing, what have you. But things were a little different this time. Even though athletically he still had it, his heart wasn't there, and primarily because he didn't feel there was anybody in the nation that was able to beat him, because, well, pretty much for the past 4 years, it was relatively easy and unchallenged right through. So he stepped into the ring at the Ontario Provincial Championships, and he virtually threw no punches. And he walked out of that ring with a loss, first loss in 5 years, and never to ever step into another ring as an athlete again. Now, life after boxing has been amazing for Mark. He has tried his hand in the film industry, in such notable films as like the Rocky Marciano story, the Cinderella Man, Phantom Punch, just to name a few. He also earned a bachelor degree in science, a Bachelor of Science undergraduate degree from York University, and now has an amazing job as a pharmaceutical rep for Pfizer. Personally, I prefer to call him the urban drug dealer, but hey, tomato, tomato, right? Oh, he's gonna kill me. He will admit that his greatest accomplishment is actually the cultivation of a family. He has a wife and 3 beautiful kids, also in tow. Mark still continues to be vested and contributing to the sport of boxing to this day. He was asked by the then athletic commissioner to offer his services in the way of being an official, and took it up and has been doing actually rather amazing since. He's a genuine attribute to the team of officials in the province of Ontario. The amateur game is still near and dear to his heart all the same. And this is one of the things that I appreciate mostly about Mark, is because he's still an intellect. And contrary to some people's belief, you can be an intellect in box. It's actually common, but yeah. Mark takes issue with the new scenario in Boxing Canada currently, how when you win and when you win your spot on the national team, you have to then uproot your life and move it to Montreal. In the event that you do not, you are no longer on the team. This has turned a lot of great talents away from pursuing amateur anything and rushing into the pros, in his opinion. I see it that way too. It doesn't make any sense. Actually, that's what he says. I concur. It just doesn't make any sense. This notion that the coach that made you, got you to the place, to the national team, you need to abandon. And unless both coach and athlete are willing to move to Montreal, which is not going to be the case. So, right then. Back in the day, there were training camps. There was training facilities. And neither Mark nor I have any issues with actual training camps, training facilities. There was Thistletown Boxing Club in Toronto, which was a national training center. But the difference is that you had training centers all over the country. Alberta had one, Quebec had one, and what would happen is when you're getting ready for a tournament, the team would fly out to that individual training center, have your training camp, go to the tournament, then you go back home. You do not have to uproot your world for your pursuit of amateur boxing excellence. And yeah, in the event that this scenario was present in 2000, he doesn't think that he would have gone to the Olympics, which was his dream, and that would have been incredibly unfortunate, to say the least. Mark has also made his disdain for the AIBA, the Amateur International Boxing Association, ruling to take off the headgear for men, rather apparent. It just doesn't make sense. And headgear doesn't stop concussions. I did a show on this a couple weeks back. It doesn't stop concussions. It stops cuts. And in the amateur ranks, where you might be in a tournament where you might have to fight 2, 3, 4 fights in a tournament, which is maybe 2 weeks, a cut could make the difference between the best athlete being sent home after round 1 and not. Just put the headgear on, reduce, like in my whole amateur career, I never got 1 cut. Got quite a few as a pro, mind you, but not 1 as an amateur. It's, I'm glad to hear that he has such issues with that nonsensical rule. And that's my opinion too. So, Mark would finish this interview with a couple things that he'd like to see happen in the amateur ranks. A couple things that he'd like to see corrected. 1, obviously, bring back headgear. 2, get professional boxers out of the Olympics. It's not their place. But more importantly, the third one is to get a new amateur governing body, which is coming because he's of the impression that AIBA may already be out or bankrupt or both. I was told that they were out. I didn't know about the bankruptcy, but I was under the impression they were already out. And a new organization will be in place. It just has to be. There's a huge void. So if you like this episode, please smash the like button below and subscribe. This is your boy Bola, and that was The Scoop.
Thanks very much. Another wonderful episode.
Cheers.
Mark sounds like a great guy, really does, and must be doing incredibly well these days working with Pfizer, especially with the distribution of the COVID vaccine, which is so important.
Yeah.
And gets us all back on the road.
Hopefully. It helps us get back to normalcy.
Exactly. So viewership, thank you once again for joining us as well. We hope you enjoyed this episode. As Big Ray says, smash that like button, share, subscribe, and we'll see you tomorrow night.